KV-1, the steel fortress of early World War II. Introduction. In the opening months of Operation Barbarossa in 1941, German Panzer commanders encountered a shock on the Eastern Front. Their Panzer III and Panzer IV tanks, which had rolled through Europe crushing Poland and France, suddenly faced an adversary their guns could not penetrate. This was the Soviet KV-1, nicknamed the Steel Fortress. As an American weapons analyst, I regard the KV-1 as one of the most fascinating tanks of the early war. It represented a leap in armored protection that temporarily gave the Red Army a decisive edge, shocking the Wehrmacht and forcing an urgent evolution in German anti-tank weaponry. To understand the KV-1 is to understand both Soviet engineering ambition and the brutal arms race of 1941 to 42. 1. The origins of the KV-1. The KV-1, Klement Voroshilov tank, named after a Soviet marshal, was born out of the Soviet need for a breakthrough tank in the late 1930s. The Spanish Civil War had shown that existing light tanks, like the BT and T-26, were too vulnerable to modern anti-tank guns. At the Kirov factory in Leningrad, Soviet engineers experimented with heavy armor. The result was the SMK and T-100 prototypes, massive multi-turreted tanks. But the Soviets soon realized a single, well-armed turret on a heavily armored chassis was more practical. This became the KV-1, accepted into service in 1939. 2. Design features. The KV-1 was a heavy tank by every measure of its time. Armor up to 75 millimeters on early models, later upgraded to 90 millimeters. In 1940 to 41, this was practically invulnerable to German 37mm and short-barreled 50mm guns. German tank crews dubbed the 37mm gun the door knocker because it only made noise against the KV's armor. Armament. The KV-1 mounted a 76.2mm L11 or later F-34-32 gun, capable of destroying any German tank of 1941. It also carried multiple machine guns for infantry defense. Engine, powered by a V2K diesel engine with 600 horsepower, impressive but strained by the tank's 45-ton weight. Mobility, slow compared to lighter Soviet tanks, top speed around 34 kilometers per hour, but still adequate for its breakthrough role. Crew, 5 men, commander, gunner, loader, driver, machine gunner/radio operator. The KV-1's armor protection was its defining feature. In 1941, it was literally unsinkable on land. The German army had almost nothing that could reliably stop it. 3. The invulnerable fortress. At the start of Operation Barbarossa, the KV-1 and its lighter sibling, the T-34, came as a devastating surprise to the Germans. Wehrmacht intelligence had assumed Soviet armor was outdated. Suddenly, they faced tanks they could not destroy with standard weapons. German 37mm PaK-36, useless against the KV-1. Panzer III or short 50mm guns, ineffective. Panzer IV's short 75mm, barely able to damage at very close range. In many cases, German units were forced to call in 88mm flak guns, artillery, or direct explosives to take out a single KV-1. Stories circulated of lone KV-1s holding up entire German battalions for hours. One famous case in June 1941 described a single KV-1 near Raseiniai, Lithuania, halting the advance of the German 6th Panzer Division for more than 24 hours, until it was finally destroyed by repeated 88mm fire. Such stories cemented the KV-1's reputation as the Steel Fortress. 4. Battlefield performance. Winter War, 1939 to 40. The KV-1 saw limited early use against Finland. Its armor proved effective, but poor mobility in deep snow and narrow roads highlighted future issues. Operation Barbarossa, 1941. In the summer of 1941, KV-1s shocked the Germans. Entire units of Panzer III and IV were helpless. Morale was shaken, and only heavy artillery or airstrikes could deal with them. However, mechanical breakdowns, poor logistics, and inexperienced crews often meant KV-1s were abandoned or captured. 1942 to 43, decline. By 1942, Germany had fielded better weapons. The long-barreled 50mm gun on late Panzer IIIs, the 75mm KWK-40 on Panzer IV Ausf F2, the feared 88mm guns in Tiger tanks. Suddenly, the KV-1 was no longer invulnerable. Its heavy weight and mediocre mobility made it less effective compared to the more balanced T-34. Production shifted heavily towards T-34s, and by 1943, the KV-1 was phased out in favor of the IS series heavy tanks. 6. Strengths and weaknesses. Strengths. Exceptional armor protection in 1940 to 41. Heavy gun capable of destroying early German tanks. Shock value on the battlefield. Psychological impact. Weaknesses. Very heavy, straining the Soviet transport and logistics system. Mechanical reliability issues, frequent breakdowns. Cramped interior, poor ergonomics compared to German designs. Quickly outclassed once Germany upgraded its anti-tank weaponry. 7. Comparison with German tanks. In 1941, the KV-1 was superior to every German tank. Panzer III, outgunned and out-armored. Panzer IV Short 75, outmatched in firepower and protection. But by 1942, the tables turned. Panzer IV with long 75mm gun could defeat KV-1s at range. Tiger I and Panther, 1942 to 43, completely overpowered them. Thus, the KV-1 had a short window of battlefield dominance, roughly mid-1940 to late 1941. 6. Legacy. Although its time in the spotlight was brief, the KV-1 left a lasting legacy. It demonstrated the power of heavy armor in the early war. It forced Germany to accelerate tank and anti-tank gun development. It provided the Red Army valuable experience in heavy tank design, paving the way for the IS-2, one of the most feared Soviet tanks of the late war. For Soviet propaganda, the KV-1 became a symbol of strength, proof that socialism could produce a fortress on tracks. From my American perspective, the KV-1 was both a triumph and a tragedy. Triumph because it temporarily gave the Red Army a weapon that terrified the Wehrmacht, proving Soviet engineering ingenuity. Tragedy because its advantages were squandered by poor logistics, unreliable mechanics, and doctrinal confusion. Still, the KV-1 deserves its place in history as the steel fortress of early World War II, a tank that could stop armies in their tracks if only for a brief but unforgettable moment in 1941.